Hello, this is a video I've been thinking about doing the last couple of days. It is Republicanism and Democracy. Republics versus democracies. Uh, yeah, America is the difference between republic and democracy. If I ever want to start yawning, I just start talking. Okay. So yeah, the difference between republics and democracies are, republics are forms of government, countries that write this constitution, and then you have to follow the rules of the constitution, and then so to help you figure out like what law to make and stuff, you just look back to the constitution, and then then of course you get your judges and stuff to interpret that, and then you can argue over that. A democracy is where every single decision you make about laws is not from your little secret manuscript, but from all the people getting together and voting for it. America's a republic. It's a democratically elected republic. Ancient Greece and Athens was a democracy. So whenever they would go and decide on whether they were going to attack the Persians or the Spartans and stuff, they would, excuse me, they would they'd all like get together in the big forum area, and then they'd get their leader like Pericles up there and shout out all of his reasons why he wanted to go attack the Persians or whatever, meet the Persians at Thermopylae or whatever, like something like this, and then everybody would go, yay, 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 ah. And the other guy would go, and then if they didn't like what he said, they go, boo. And so that's how they made the decisions. And then they voted for each other with the little chips and stuff. But they didn't have like a big Bible that they would all follow. I think that's originally what the original Bible, the Hebrew Bible, was. They were a republic, and that was the Ten Commandments and all these different laws were the rules that they would all go off. So you would have their Supreme Court, like Solomon, making decisions based on the Bible, just like our Supreme Court justices make their decisions based on the democracy of America. And the Code of Hammurabi was the first one that was back in ancient Kush or Elam, I don't know, one of those Mesopotamian city-states back like 5,000 years ago. I mean, that was actually really advanced, too. They had all kinds of rules. It was really long. If you were to read it really fast, it'd take you like 2 hours to get through. So I don't think we have any like straight democracies these days, but as time goes on in the future, we are going to become more and more of a democracy. So we're going to make amendments to the Constitution, allowing for more and more power to the people. When the Constitution was written back in 1776-ish, I guess, by Thomas Jefferson, who was only about 28 years old at the time. The Constitution was written by a kid. That was a long time ago. That was where most of the people weren't literate. And so the world's changed a lot since then. Now, 12-year-old black fat girls can know more than Thomas Jefferson ever did, just from getting on the internet. And I mean, they have the potential to. And I think within a few years, every citizen of America, by the time they're 18 or 20, is going to know more about world politics, world history, difference between right and wrong in a utopian world, not in a not in a dog-eat-dog primitive world, than our founding fathers ever did. So it's going to cause reason for us to become more and more of a democratically elected republic, with less and less people being appointed into power. The reason that they had appointments is because back in the early days, people didn't know the difference between what would be a good politician or not. Some people would just vote for the people they knew, and they didn't have any reasons to go by, because they didn't know how to read. They didn't have the information. They didn't know the difference between right and wrong. They didn't know all of the different factors for all the different rules, and they hadn't read the Constitution. They didn't have a copy of it in front of them. So it wouldn't have been a good idea to just be like, all right, well, who we're going to vote as Supreme Court judge? Let everybody vote, and then people would just vote for the guy who had the most money and spread his pamphlets around the most, and they'd be like, okay, that guy, he bought me a sandwich the other day. So that's why they have like Supreme Court justices appointed. You vote in your president, the big guy, because he's the guy who people have the time to go watch stand on top of the tree stump and give his reasons for why he should be president. So then you vote him in, and then you just trust him to make the good decision to appoint the Supreme Court justices and his vice president. Well, actually, originally the vice president was the guy who got second in the polls. I think it should happen like that again, but yeah, so the vice president is appointed, Supreme Court justices are appointed, police commissions are appointed. I don't even know the whole list because I'm not studying that right now, but a whole bunch of people in power are appointed. Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank, who deals with all of our money secretly, he's appointed. And so now, with all of our new technology and smarter people and education getting better, we should every single year be doing a review, or maybe every 10 years, do even a publicly watched review of which positions are we going to turn into democratically elected. Pretty soon we're going to be able to vote online. They're going to figure out a way to let us just vote online. It's going to be, well, we have voting booths all over the place, and people are going to become more politically involved. So people will be able to vote and be interested in voting. So we're going to eventually get the chairman of the Federal Reserve voted in there. We're going to get even the Supreme Court justices voted in, and everybody voted in. So we should monitor that. I think the Supreme Court justices. Do I think the Supreme Court justices should be voted in or appointed now? I think that would be a bad idea. Actually, at this point, people aren't smart enough. A whole lot of people, I don't know the statistics, I can't remember it, but a whole lot of people in America think that the world was invented, was like created 6,000 years ago, and have a lot of weird beliefs, and they have never read the Constitution, haven't heard of it, so I don't think we're ready for that yet. But we should definitely keep that in mind and keep monitoring that, and specifically design our public education to make it with that as a goal, for people to be smart enough to be able to vote the Supreme Court justices in for America, and also for the states. And then after that, we're going to even those people who are in power and make those decisions those decisions are going to stop being made by them, and their jobs are going to become obsolete, and all the decisions are going to be voted on by the citizens. All of the decisions about, like, all the decisions that the Supreme Court makes now, all the decisions even about how we spend our money. Are we going to give $50 trillion a year to subsidize this thing this year, or 45 billion or 30 billion, and then you all vote on it? So we turn back from a republic that's based on everybody just looking back at the Constitution gradually to people voting, and from people, okay, so from people getting appointed to more and more people getting voted in, to more and more actual decisions about how to spend money and which laws to make being voted in themselves. So we're going to gradually make the transition into a pure democracy, where we vote everything. Like every single day there's a new vote. Right now people look every day, they get up and they look at their email, or they look in whatever they look in, what's new on TV, what does my favorite radio host have to tell me what to believe today, what's on Facebook, what are my friends up to, what new videos did the people I subscribe to upload, what are the new comics in the radio or on the newspaper, what are the scores of the teams that I'm watching, sports teams and stuff. But that's gonna evolve into people getting up every morning and looking online about all the decisions that are being made about our country, and then they'll just vote. You go, oh, okay, yeah, vote, and then of course that'll be made more and more and more and more big, as for starting in America, and then other countries will see how that works and see that it works better. I think it'll start in America. America's definitely, we've fallen a lot as far as getting owned by companies and people being, since just because there's so much wealth, you have to figure out how to redistribute it, and people, it's happened before. It happened more than it's happening now back in the turn of the century. So, but yeah, starting in America and then moving on to other countries, and then we'll have one big country eventually that we all vote everything in, all the laws about everything in, and we all vote. We all have the right to vote. I guess once you get to the age of 18, you get the right to vote, no matter who or where or what you are. So that'll actually cause people to take, say, if there's like still in those days, maybe it's like 100 years in the future, there's still going to be like backwoods, uneducated people in the middle of like the Congo or something, and they still have as much vote as everybody else. And they're in the middle of the jungle and they have their internet and they're voting. Well, since they have their vote, people will be going after them to try to teach them their agenda. And so it'll actually increase in the shared disbursement of information. Yeah, you could say, yes, well, people would teach them their agenda, their money agenda that would help them. But in doing that, it would be stimulating the backwoods people to think for themselves, and then they would go, okay, and then they get on the internet, and then they see all the other information there, and they'll be smart enough. So it won't be one of these situations where they'll just blindly vote for whoever taught them the issues and what to vote for. They will have thanks and vote for what they tell them to, and as they should. Whoever goes out there and teaches these backwoods people what to vote on would deserve some recompense for that, and their recompense would be the people going, okay, I'll vote for what you say. But eventually it'll help with their education, and they'll know what the right thing to vote for is. So we should all also decide on an exact timeline for all of these things to occur. I'll include that on my timeline for the future, so that it'll help us have goals for what to try to achieve in the growth of our political system and our laws and stuff, because we grew out of the Bible. We don't use the Bible as a code of laws. Well, actually, a lot of people do, but we don't do it, and we have separation of church and state. And so as time goes on, we become more and more advanced. We're going to be more and more familiar with the Constitution because it's not that big. But we're going to be able to think more and more for ourselves and be relying less and less on the Constitution as this thing that points us in the right direction, that we need to be pointed in the right direction. Start using. We'll know the difference between right and wrong. Because, like I said, we'll be just as smart as Thomas Jefferson was when he wrote the Constitution. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, as far as having everybody vote for everything and having one world country, I think that could happen in my lifetime if I live another like 100+ years. I'd be like 140-year-old like old guy and be like, oh look, it kind of looks like everybody's voting. Yeah, so I think it could happen like that. And but as far as like Supreme Court and stuff, people being voted in, yeah, I think that could happen within like another 60 years or something, 50 years. But it would be a cool thing for us to plug in when we think about the future. Somebody sent me a link about the future. There's this website about future. Some dude made a future timeline, and I read it a little bit, and all he had was like, oh, we're gonna run out of oil, and then we're gonna have civil war, and but yeah. That's kind of a pessimistic future, but people should make optimistic future timelines where that plug in the actual exact detailed description of the political system that we're going to have in the future. Because I think it makes more sense to believe in a positive future than a negative future. There's just too many amazing things that are going on right now with technology and how people can share and with each other anywhere in the world, and how intelligent, how informed young people are growing up, and how racially integrated we're becoming, and we're going to become responsible and tolerant. We're becoming a lot more tolerant than we were before. I can tell that. So, and that's the golden word, tolerance. If you have that, then you can actually argue with somebody rather than just resorting to personal attacks when you realize that they're smarter than you are. So that's the relationship between republicanism and democracy. I think democracy is a higher form of government than republicanism. Republicanism is like babysat. But democracy is the highest form of government. A socialist democracy, where everybody owns everything. The state owns everything, but the state is controlled by the people who vote on everything. So that's the relationship between republics and democracies. Now, as far as the past relationship between republics and democracies, there's all different kinds of republics and democracies. You have well, I guess that's another video, huh? That'll be another one of my history videos.